May I come in, sir?
Yes, please do.
Yes, sir. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Take your seat.
Thank you, sir.
You're Mr. Adarsh Kant Shukla.
Yes, sir.
Adarsh, will English be your preferred medium for interview?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're comfortable with that?
Yes, sir.
Adarsh, I know you're worried about COVID. We all are taking care of it. And we have taken several steps. One of the steps is that we are using sanitizers, we are using masks and other things. And we are also ensured that you are sitting at a distance which is safe from anybody in this room, right? Another advantage of doing so is that if you wish to remove your mask, then considering that you must be feeling safe and that there is this fogging issue when you wear mask. So you can consider removing your mask. Would you like to?
Sure, sir.
Please.
Thank you, sir.
Comfortable?
Yes, sir.
I want you to introduce yourself to board members.
Sure, sir. Sir, I have come from Barabanki. I have been born and brought up in Barabanki itself. Thereafter, I graduated from National PG College, Lucknow. I did BSc. And after that, I decided to pursue civil services. This is my first attempt. In my free time, I like to watch documentaries and read books.
Adarsh, I can see that you're a very young person. You're definitely eligible to apply and appear in the interview and in the mains and all. But don't you believe that a person coming from a tier 2 city and still so young should first get some kind of a maturity, should get some kind of a exposure to bigger cities, to better places, before getting into civil services? Would it be too naive a person to get into civil service?
So first of all, one of my primary reasons for choosing civil services is to expand my exposure and to leverage the
Young
diversified.
man, this is civil services. It's not an amusement park. You cannot come here to get your experience and then go to the world. It is the world.
Sure, sir. My choice to pursue civil services was not something that I have decided lately. It was right from the very beginning that I had decided that I will pursue civil services. And my decision to opt for BSc was that to make sure that first I pursue scientific research, and once I gain some experience in that research, I will pursue civil services. But during the course of my graduation, during the last year, I realized that my intrigue lies in civil services, and that is something I can find myself more comfortable in. So I gained some information symmetry regarding the civil services, and I ensured that I inculcate some personality traits that are suitable for civil services, and only then I decided to come and join civil services.
Anyways, you've taken sociology. Tell me why an average, bright, meritorious young person in places like UP have very limited dreams. Their dreams are actually taking a government job, if possible, good government job, if best, civil services. Why don't our society, especially the society in Uttar Pradesh and other places around Uttar Pradesh, is incapable of giving its youth diversified dreams?
So first of all, Uttar Pradesh, as we know, has a feudal history, and there has been some development disparities prevailing in that state, out of which the youth of Uttar Pradesh sees opportunity as a government officer, that he can leverage that platform to make some of the improvements in the infrastructure as well as in the development scenario of the state. Secondly, we know that the private investment in Uttar Pradesh in the last few decades has not been as at par if we compare it to states like Maharashtra or Gujarat. Added disadvantage is that Uttar Pradesh is a landlocked state, so it does not have the export prospect which the coastal states enjoy. Also, it is not that blessed in mineral resources as well. So that is why government job become a very lucrative option for the youth to give wings to their ambition, and also as a platform to ensure that the development disparity can be bridged.
Okay. Considering that you have taken sociology as your optional paper and you never studied sociology in your college, can you tell me that what were the books, sociology books, not the guides, you studied?
Sir, I read Herlumbos and Holborn. It was a book which entails an ambit of themes and perspectives around the globe, which have been put forward by various sociologists. Apart from that, I read Ritzer book, which sociological thinkers book, which puts forward how the perspectives evolved along the time, be it Marxist and then neo-Marxist. It also entails some latest perspectives like postmodernist and post-structuralist also. And
Which book are you talking about?
so it's called Sociological Thinkers. It's by Ritzer.
I told you in the beginning that you will need to give me a book from the sociologist rather than giving me anthologies and collections.
Sorry, sir.
I call them guides and kunjis.
Sir, as of now,
You actually didn't study a single sociology book. You're here despite the fact that you never studied a single sociology book. How do you see it?
so first of all, there is a limited cost and benefit. If you analyze our preparation journey, I analyze everything with a certain cost and benefit analysis, and I realized that in order to cover the UPSC syllabus, I first of all need to have a comprehensive view and a helicopter view of entire UPSC syllabus. In order to divulge into a single
I like
perspective.
your honesty. Thank you. Sir.
Adarsh, I was scanning through the service preference that you have indicated in your detailed application form. To me, it appears very surprising that you have opted for Indian Police Service as your second best service choice, right?
Yes, sir.
On the other hand, you have opted RPF at serial number 12, Danif serial number 20, and Pondicherry Police Service at serial number 21. My understanding says that the profile of IPS and the other three services have many things in common.
Sure, sir.
Are you agreeing with my viewpoint?
Sure, sir.
Why you have expressed your disdain, or rather I should say disliking for these three services which are having more or less same kind of charter of duties and profile? Why?
So first of all, me choosing IPS as the second preference and choosing these services below that does not have to do with my dislike or disdain specifically towards these services. If I get an opportunity to serve these services, I'll give my 100% to these services also. But my preference for IPS was because of its all India character. Apart from IAS, IPS is the only all India services that we have in these choices. And talking about the other two preferences, it's not because of my dislike towards them. It was more because of my preference towards other services that I chose those services above these services.
Okay, can you please briefly tell me why any service is called All India Service? There are three All India services, right?
Yes.
On what parameter, what criteria these services have been listed like that?
So all India services have a cadre management system under which a trainee or a person who is at deputation, he is transferred from he is allowed to train and undergo his deputation within a specific cadre, and once that his period in that cadre is completed, he is taken back to deputation at central level. So this cadre specific nature of all India services ensure that a person who belongs to a specific region in India has the exposure and he has the opportunity to explore the diverse cultures of other regions also. So it maintains a sense of federalism as well as inter-regional solidarity in India.
Okay. Since you have studied sociology as your optional subject, can you please tell me what are the challenges being faced by, mind it, rural women of upper caste and urban women belonging to OBC, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe?
So first of all, upper class rural women have a disadvantage that whenever the economic mobility or whenever the economic development of a family increases, what happens is that women are withdrawn from the labor force. We have seen this in the example of Haryana, where when the rural elites became more prominent, the women were withdrawn from the economic activities, and the disparity in sex ratio also became quite apparent. So this is some problem which is faced by the upper class rural women. Also in upper class, it is seen that they have access to technologies like ultrasound technology. So sex selective abortion becomes quite feasible in upper class. That is not that accessible in lower class. Talking about SC, ST and OBC women, they face a sense of intersectional discrimination because they do not face just discrimination based upon their gender, they also face discrimination based upon their caste as well as their class. So this kind of triple discrimination which they face is quite unique, and this lead to a sense of class ceiling as well as leaky pipeline issues where women from marginalized caste.
I got it, Adarsh. My last question to you. Our Tibet policy has been in news of late. Can you please briefly tell me, ever since we gave asylum to the Tibetan leader Dalai Lama, and with him a huge population, coming from Tibet to India, has there been a continuity insofar as our policy towards Tibet and China is concerned, or there has been a change? If at all there is a change, can you please tell me what was that turning point which induced this particular change, which has been seen in our foreign policy for Tibet?
Sir, we have seen that India has always supported Tibet and ambitions of Tibet because of some common links between India and Tibet, be it Buddhism or be it giving shelter to Buddhist Guru Dalai Lama. And India has ensured that the Chinese hegemony on Tibet is not counterproductive to aspirations of Tibetan people. And for this, India had established a special administrative region for Tibetan people. And in the recent times, we have seen that the rising Chinese aggression on various fronts, be it at Galwan clash or be it.
So that was the turning point in change of our relationship with Tibet.
So we have ensured that we support Tibet, and that sends a message to China that
we have already. It is a stated position of India that Tibet is an integral part of China. There is no doubt about this from our standpoint of view, right? But yes, we also support the aspirations, independent aspirations of the Tibetan people. But yes, in the recent past only, there has been a tectonic shift in our stated position and the foreign policy that we are pursuing. And that has been induced because of our strained relationship in the recent past. This is what my question briefly is. Do you agree with this viewpoint?
Yes, sir, to an extent I agree. And there is also this opportunity vacuum arising because of the choosing of successor to Dalai Lama. That is why, that is another reason why India has been more persistent in its tackling of this issue.
Is this change going to serve our national interest?
So I am optimistic that it will serve our national interest.
Sir, please.
Adarsh. Adarsh means ideal.
Yes, sir.
What does ideal mean?
Sir, ideal is a reference individual with whom we compare our aspiration and our ambition, and he or she is someone whom we like to be in the future.
Okay. So, in what sense you are ideal and in what sense you are not?
Sir, I am ideal in the sense that I try to ensure that my thoughts and my actions are consistent with each other. I do not value just moral integrity, but there is an intellectual integrity in my actions also. I am hardworking and I am resolute in my determination. Also, I have this keen curiosity to learn and improvise things. So, in this sense, I believe that I am ideal. Having said that, there are certain limitations because of my limited experience and exposure. My exposure has been limited to my home district Barabanki only. So in that sense, I need to read more and expose myself more to diverse regions and cultures so that I become ideal in that aspect also.
Okay, recently Uda Devi was in news. Do you know anything about her?
Sir, I'm not aware of the recent news, but I have heard about Uda Devi. I have read about her in the past. She was a companion of Maharani Lakshmibai, if I remember correctly. She belonged to marginalized caste, and it is famous. She is famous for that Battle of Hazratganj, where she fought with Colin Campbell, the British general. So that is a famous battle for which
companion of Rani Lakshmibai.
So she was in that army. Sorry, sir, I'm not able to remember.
You are from Barabanki. If we talk about the economy of Barabanki, a very significant development happened very recently. Are you aware of that?
Sir, due to erratic monsoon, menthol farmers faced quite a problem because...
No, actually Britannia is going to establish industry in your Barabanki. Okay. UP Assembly has passed many bills, has made many laws, and you study in your sociology about law and social changes. you have to name some few laws and how they impacted the society. Just choose one or few law and tell about the impact of that particular law on the society.
Sir, one such law that comes into my mind is Prevention of Atrocities Against SC/ST Act. This law helped in eradicating the kind of physical violence as well as verbal violence which the marginalized communities were facing in our society. So that helped in addressing the discrimination faced by them. Another law which comes into my mind is the Hindu Adoption Act, under which the daughters were entitled equal share in the property. And I remember this law specifically, Hindu Succession Act, because of the latent dysfunction it produced, because it was intended that it will help in giving equality to daughters. But what happened was that it increased the sex selective abortions and sex ratio distorted because of that, because people became more afraid of sharing the property and they started doing female ferticide. So because of this latent dysfunction, this law comes into my mind.
Okay, your hobby is playing cricket. In India, everybody is playing cricket.
Yes, sir.
As far as my understanding is concerned, it's not your hobby. It's hobby given by your society. What do you think on this?
Sir, to an extent, I do agree, and not just because of cricket. I believe that every kind of hobby, we do have a certain role of social conditioning that comes into play. For example, my second hobby, documentary watching, is only because I have exposure to various platforms and my economic status allows me to leverage these platforms and watch documentaries on the go. But if we talk about any marginalized caste or any marginalized class people, they cannot afford to have this hobby because their avenues are limited. So any kind of hobby, be it cricket or anyone, the social conditioning do play a role, and I acknowledge that role.
Okay, thank you, Adarsh. That's all from my side.
Thank you, sir.
Adarsh.
Sir.
Adarsh, you are a student of the sociology, and in sociology, definitely some data are being collected, the research is being done, then generalization is being made. Recently, Global Hunger Index, India has been ranked almost 94, but Indian government has posed its anguishment over the kind of the methodology which has been used for it. So you being sociology student, do you think these kind of the oppositions in terms of the calculations of Indian's position on those indexes? How do you see as a sociologist?
So first of all, I believe that there is a problem of hunger and malnutrition in our country, because even Niti Aayog has flagged some issues of malnutrition prevailing in our country, and NHFS survey also has pointed out time and again that India has been facing difficulties on the front of malnutrition and hunger. Having said that, that report places India below the countries which are war-ravaged and where political instability has affected various human rights of the civilians. So government has questioned the faulty methodology, and if the methodology has some fault, then we need to...
Where are the faults? Where are the faults?
So government has questioned the sample size and their criteria of what hunger is. For example, the hunger may depend upon whether you have access to minimum standards of food resources.
Do you agree that vast section of Indian society is deprived of the food grains or availability of the food grains in spite of National Security for Food, so the Right to Food Act, right?
Yes, sir, I do agree that.
At the same time, Indian government has also decided to divert a major chunk of the food grains, like almost 78,000 of tons rice, for the productions of the ethanol, and that would be the part of India's the policy of mixing up into this hydrocarbons. So don't you think so these kind of the steps are somehow not going to suffice those purposes for filling up the tummy of the people, when majority, it's like vast number of the people, they are like sleeping without food?
So first of all, I believe that in terms of production, food grains production, India is one of the topmost countries in the world, and the production side is not as much a problem as it's the accessibility and availability side. Because of the absence of supply side infrastructure and the diversions which are taking place at the last mile connectivity level, there is a problem. For example, in Anganwadi, we see that there is a diversion of substance elements like panjiri and the basic folic acid supplements are missing at times. It has also been flagged by CAG. Talking about the diversion of food grains for ethanol production, government has maintained that Food Corporation of India has the excess amount of reserves as compared to its minimum capacity. So that is why government has decided to leverage the excess of food grains for ethanol production, and the decentralization is also being looked at to relieve some of the functions of FCI and reduce our food subsidy.
I understand. Recently, Japan has published a map where Taiwan has been excluded as part of the China. What is India's stand also in this regard? What is India's stand on the Taiwan? Because India-Taiwan relations are grooming nowadays. So how do you see Taiwan as a factor relation between India, Japan and China?
So India recognizes one China policy where Taiwan and Macau both are recognized as a part of integral China. However, India does engage with Taiwan at regular intervals. For example, in the 1990s, we established our office in Taiwan, and India engages with Taiwan in terms of technologies like bamboo charcoal technology, and the common link of Buddhism is also there. Also, in recent past, we have seen that during COVID-19, Taiwan had contributed various masks to India also. So it indicates that a level of diplomatic engagement has been rising. Having said that, India continuously adheres to one China policy, and it does not like to interfere what is a matter of territorial sovereignty or integrity of any other country.
Related with the COVID-19, what is monoclonal antibody?
Sir, I'll have to read on that.
Okay.
Adarsh,
Yes, ma'am.
since you mentioned sex-selective abortions, I want you to tell me which is the law in India that regulates abortions in India.
Ma'am, it is prenatal conception and diagnostic tools.
I'm not talking about sex-selective abortions.
Yes, ma'am.
Abortions in general. Which law regulates abortions in India?
Ma'am, it is MTPA,
Yes.
Maternal Termination and Pregnancy Act, I think it is.
Okay. Do you know, can you tell me a few features of this act? Very important features of this act?
Ma'am, according to this act, if a couple wants to abort a children, if they decide to abort a children within 12 weeks, they have to take consultation of one medical expert, and if they decide to abort it within 20 weeks, they have to take consultation of two medical officers. And in case there is some abnormalities and they decide to extend this period of 20 weeks, then there has to be a medical board whose consultation is sought by the government, and then they are allowed.
So don't you think doctors have more say in this act than women?
To an extent, yes, ma'am. There is an element of constraint of choice when it comes to women. For example, even in cases of consultation by doctor, it is mostly the males and senior members of the family who take the decision, and the choice of women is limited in this regard.
Also, there has been this change that now unmarried women or single women can also decide whether they want to keep the child or whether they don't want to keep the child. So don't you think even fathers should have a say in that case?
Sure, ma'am. There was a case regarding it where the right to bodily autonomy of a female was contested with the right of father to have a say in the child. So this has been a rising issue, and the court has sought some time to decide on that. But yes,
which one do you personally prefer?
Ma'am, I believe that right to bodily autonomy of a female has to be given preference. But in the longer run, it will be better if both reconcile with each other.
Tell me, which highways did you take while coming to Delhi from Barabanki?
Sorry, ma'am. As of now, I do not.
Okay, name some famous expressways of Uttar Pradesh.
Ma'am, there is this Bundelkhand Expressway, which is being recently inaugurated. And apart from that, there is Purvanchal Expressway also. And Yamuna Expressway connects Uttar Pradesh to Barabanki to states like Agra, regions like Agra. And lastly, there is this Ganga Expressway, for which the expression of interest has been sought by the government.
How do you think these expressways have changed or contributed to economy of Uttar Pradesh?
Ma'am, first of all, if you see the example of Purvanchal Expressway, areas like Balia and Deoria, they were having some development deficit because industries were not ready to come up these areas. But now with the infrastructure in place, there have been increasing demand of land acquisition in these areas. And adding it to the eastern and western freight corridors, it has leveraged the economy of Uttar Pradesh to maintain the interest of various public-private partnerships in these areas. Lastly, Bundelkhand Expressway has been quite instrumental in the recent defense corridor project in Uttar Pradesh, where Chitrakoot and Jhansi, these regions have leveraged this expressway to invite companies and attract them.
Since you know we are in middle of the pandemic and inflation is very high, do you know the inflation rate, current inflation rate?
Ma'am, recently I saw a report where it said that it is the second time when the inflation rate crossed 6%.
Okay. Do you know about Monetary Policy Committee?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the objective of Monetary Policy Committee?
Its objective is to ensure that the inflation remains between the rate of 2 to 6%.
So do you think Monetary Policy Committee has failed in achieving its objective?
Ma'am, I would not say that it has failed in this objective, because monetary policy can only control the demand side factor. There are certain supply side factors which are not in its control. For example, be it monsoon supply or international crude oil prices. These do not come under the ambit of monetary supply. And in the middle of coronavirus pandemic, the growth prospect also have to be given some consideration. That is why our monetary policy has been easing in its stance.
Thank you, Adarsh. It was nice talking to you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Adarsh.
Yes, sir.
Adarsh, you're a sociology student, you're also a science student. First of all, tell me, what exactly is the difference between a cult, sect and a religion?
Sir, religion is an institutionalized system of beliefs and practices which provides a sense of meaning or purpose to an individual. When we talk about sect is an offshoot of a religion. For example, let's just say a religion develops some differences within itself. Then a sect diverges itself from that institutional religion and it becomes an offshoot of religions when it gains some legitimacy in the society. We can give the example of Lingayat sect, which has diverged some differences within the Hinduism. Lastly, cult is more autonomous and individualistic in its orientation. Also, it is based upon certain totems. It leverages certain totems and symbolic experiences. Cult aims to create an exhaustive experience for individual. It aims to cater to an individual orientation, and it has been rising in the cities especially, while the religion and sect have been limited to rural areas.
Can cult be a political party? Or can political party be a cult?
Sure, sir. In the recent times, we have seen that not even a political party, even celebrities can develop some cult culture, because at the end of the day, cult caters to what the individual aspirations are. And if that individual aspiration is satisfied by the fandom of a celebrity or the aura around a celebrity, then that celebrity can also develop a cult.
Well, I initially asked this question primarily to a science student actually, to indicate that of late we have seen that science or the scientific temper and religion, historically in all civilizations, they have a relationship which is not really a harmonious relationship. They, in a sense, they are not at peace with each other. They have a relationship where they fight with each other. But unfortunately, in our country, religion and so-called science, whatever science we had, was not only in peace with the religion, but at times it was subordinate to religion. Do you believe that one of the reasons of lack of scientific temper in our society is that we never confronted religion? Science never confronted religion.
Yes, to some extent I agree with your proposition, because in our country we have a rigid value system. Be it was like casteism or patriarchy, they derive their legitimacy from the rituals and scriptures that we have. And any attempt by science to invalidate these rituals or customs or to eradicate the social evils has met with certain opposition, be it in the social reformers of the past or be it in the current context itself. We have seen that in the rise of COVID-19 pandemic, there have been various attempts by scientific researchers to allay the fears and vaccine hesitancy. And I attribute it to the illiteracy and ignorance which is present in our society. Also,
but we were not always illiterate society. There were times when we were a relatively educated society.
Yes, I do agree, and I also agree that in the past there were some instances where science confronted religion. It's not that the religion has always been dominant over science. In fact, I was reading a book lately, and I realized that Mr. Shahuji Bhosle, who was the grandson of the famous Chhatrapati Shivaji, he wrote a parody of caste system which was written by his pseudonym, and he titled it Sati Dana Suramu, where he disparaged the evils of caste system and he insulted some religious scriptures with validated caste system. But out of fear that people may not legitimize him as a king, he had to allay those. But in the past, there have been independent attempts by various researchers, such like Raja Savai Jai Singh also. He also maintained that there has to be scientific temperament in our society. So I acknowledge that there have been attempts, but in the recent times, yes, there has been some dominance.
Related area is your hobby, that is book reading. You've been to only two places, as you said, either in Barabanki or at best in Lucknow. What exactly is the status of a book reading culture when it comes to Barabanki? And if you can compare it with the book reading culture, if there is any, with Lucknow?
So in Barabanki, book reading is limited to institutional magazines, and especially the culture of poetry is prevalent in Barabanki because Kumar Barabanki, the famous poet, he comes from Barabanki. So the culture of couplets is there in Barabanki, and the reading is not that much developed because there is a culture of oral poetry and seminars where the famous poets perform give their performances. However, if I compare it to Lucknow, there has been a sense of elitism in the reading of Lucknow, and since tastes are more aristocratic in the nature, they prefer more and more English writings as compared to Barabanki. There is a prevalence of vernacular languages like Hindi, and Munshi Premchand and Dhanamveer Bharti are some of the famous literary figures in Barabanki. While in Lucknow, we have seen that the Western novels and even in the rising times, there have been new poetry which has been dominant in the reading culture of Lucknow.
Fine. Adarsh, it was nice talking to you. Your interview is over. You can go now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Take your seat, Adarsh.
Thank you, sir.
Happy?
So there are certain areas I need to improve.
Okay, tell me, what are these areas?
So first of all, the very first question that you asked me, I need to be more organized in my thoughts. Secondly, as ma'am asked about the highways and expressway, my mind went just numb. So I need to gain more information on that also.
See, okay, there can be obviously improvement with any personality. You can think of that. But to our understanding, you are kind of a ready person. I'm really happy the way whole interview went. The interview and the discussion that followed, we are all almost unanimous that you are definitely the most wonderful candidate we have interviewed in recent past. There are things you have learned well, there are things you have expressed well, and mostly you are a very good candidate. Coming to specifics of this interview, your entry is good, your sitting posture by and large is good, your voice level is good, your vocabulary is good. At places, in general, your analysis is also good. So when we talk about the communication parameters, usually these are very good, except maybe a slight neck movement which is there. Though, I'm okay with that. It's not that it is obstructing the communication. And this little stiffness in your hand is visible. Keep it the way it is, but let it be less stiff, right? Otherwise, these things are good. What I liked most was that when the hostile line of questioning is there, initially we started with the hostile line of questioning, hoping that you are a young candidate, you will break down. And that's not the case. You were able to handle that hostile line of questioning very well, and you were able to keep yourself cool. Though it is true that when the responses of the initial questions were coming, they were less structured in comparison to what the others we saw in the later part of your interview. So yes, you're right that you can start with that temperament in the beginning itself. That will be even better. Be prepared for a small spell of hostile line of questioning. Young candidates are tested on this. So that is one area. But otherwise, board members will be very happy to interview somebody who is born in 1999 and is showing this exemplary maturity in course of, and not just maturity, there is also the diversity and depth, which is interesting. So yes, there can be a few areas you can brush up. These pertain to your optional subject. Maybe a little bit more depth about your state will also help. But even if you you choose not to get into more preparation, you are ready to face the music right today. So you don't have to worry much about it. So my only concern right now I have is that you are a young candidate and it is very likely it is your first attempt, which effectively means that we are talking to somebody who can be cabinet secretary someday. So my worry is that at this age there is a possibility of taking too many suggestions from the many places and then peaking early.
Yes.
If you today is 18th of July, right? And your interview is I can see is in August. You still have around 1 month. If it is your peak and you have to sustain this peak for 30 days, it can be challenging. You're getting my point? There is a possibility of you sliding rather than going upward. So, because in effect you will be trying to go up, but since you have already peaked, the chances are that you can slide. So, my request to you will be that sustain this level of performance for next 30 days. Don't take many suggestions and try to implement minimum suggestions.
Sure, sir.
If you can sustain the way you are today, you're through, right? All the best.
Thank you, sir.
You can go. You want to ask something?
Yes, sir. Correct. Sir, I had this tendency of looking at only the person who is asking the
question. That is the best way of doing it. Please understand, I mean, I've been suggesting it for 2 decades now. I don't know who gave that rumor to the industry that you should be looking at 5% at the same time. It is not natural.
Yes, sir.
It is not natural for human being to look at 5% at the same time and win the trust of 5% at the same time. It is not possible. Best way is, I've given you this suggestion. Had I been looking there, I'm sure it was less effective. I'm sure I would have your trust.
Yes,
similarly, if you're not looking at me while talking to me, you will not have my trust. So you can have a glance here and there. It will not hurt. It will not give you anything either, but it will not hurt. But primarily look at the person you're talking to, and primarily you're doing so. So don't worry about it. Right? All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.